Welcome to Rising Friends. Saagar, what's happening today?
Well, new developments in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Elizabeth Warren has raised a boatload of money, more so than some of her other competitors. And the latest developments in the Senate race in Kentucky shaping up to be probably the race of the decade.
Mitch
so
McConnell.
That will be fun.
Look out for it. All that and more coming up today on Rising. All right, Saagar, learning a lot more about Jeffrey Epstein. What do we know?
Well, the Southern District of New York revealed yesterday just how deep the rot goes in terms of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Jeffrey Epstein, if we should all recall, was prosecuted in 2005, but was given a sweetheart deal by current Secretary of Labor, Alexander Acosta. Despite the fact that federal prosecutors had evidence that he was trafficking dozens of young girls out of his Palm Beach mansion, he was given only 13 months in the Palm Beach County Jail. Now the Southern District of New York is going after him, and they're showing that he is an unrepentant pedophile. Prosecutors revealed in a discovery letter yesterday that they pulled hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of nude young women, showing that Jeffrey Epstein, as they quote, is an unrepentant pedophile. He has learned nothing from his 2005 prosecution. And it just goes to show the sham and miscarriage of justice that this 2005 case was against him. It just demonstrates how power can buy your way out of the most heinous charges that this society has decided that anybody who practices crimes like this should be locked away for life. I also want to pay homage to the Miami Herald and the power of journalism. The Southern District of New York called out the power of journalism in these investigative reports, which revealed these sweetheart deals struck by federal prosecutors in Southern Florida towards Jeffrey Epstein, and they credited them with renewing interest in this case. And Krystal, it just once again shows, A, that the Secretary of Labor needs to answer for what he has done here.
Yes.
The fact that he has remained silent for over 6 months is disgusting. The fact that the White House refuses to say anything about this is ridiculous. But even more so, it just demonstrates how you can literally buy your way out of child rape. Well, there's nothing more heinous in this world.
There is nothing more heinous. Yeah. The details we learned yesterday were so disturbing. The most disturbing, of course, being that even after all of this, after having been prosecuted, after all of this, he still has all in a locked safe in his mansion, all of these photos of nude and partially nude young girls and discs with more photos on them.
He labeled as child pornography.
Horrible.
In his own house. That's how safe Jeffrey Epstein felt.
Right.
In his own house.
Right.
In downtown Manhattan. And he felt safe enough that he could store that material.
And the thing is that it is not just him, right? And that's your point, is that he was supported and shielded and allowed to persist in this lifestyle that he felt he could get away with impunity, committing these heinous crimes for years against probably hundreds of young women. Those are the allegations, because a lot of other powerful people look the other way, because a lot of other powerful people helped smooth and glide his path back into society and protect him from any accountability. It is absolutely horrifying, and thank God that he may finally face some justice here.
It's just like the Harvey Weinstein case, where it wasn't just about Harvey Weinstein, as much of a monster as he is. It was about how the entire system of Hollywood enabled this man for decade after decade after decade after decade, about his own staff, about his business partners. This is all going to finally come out with Jeffrey Epstein, and I don't care who it exposes, because I hope
me neither.
Rot.
Democrat, Republican, and that's one of the weird things on social media is like Democrats are all like, oh, Trump's going to go down, or the Republicans are all convinced that the Democrats are going to go down. It's going to be Clinton. Take them all out. I don't care.
I couldn't agree more. What's on your radar?
So Elizabeth Warren. Yesterday, we learned that she clocked in with a hefty second quarter cash haul of $19 million. That puts her just ahead of Senator Sanders, who, of course, is a notable fundraiser, and just behind Joe Biden in terms of the cash race. Buttigieg is out front this quarter with nearly $25 million raised. More important, though, than the amount is how Warren raised that money. No fundraisers, no call time, No bending the knee to bundlers and elites. According to her campaign, her average donation was just $28, and the money came from 384,000 different people. This, of course, echoes the approach of Sanders, whose $18 million raised came from nearly 1 million donations. And the most common employer listed by Sanders' donors was Walmart. So Walmart workers giving to political campaigns. Incredible. The Warren and Sanders people-powered approach has exposed what I think might be the most important rift in the Democratic Party. Do you talk the talk about getting money out of politics, or do you actually walk the walk? In the top tier of candidates, you've got Sanders and Warren on one side of that divide, and Harris, Biden, and Buttigieg firmly in the other camp. Up until recently, you could kind of make the case that Democrats would be unilaterally disarming if they didn't suck up to wealthy donors and try to play the money game the same way that the Republicans do. But times have changed, and I'm not just talking about the presidential level. If you look at 2018, we saw an explosion of Democratic grassroots giving that was really historic. Act Blue, which is a conduit for small dollar Democratic giving, processed $1.6 billion in donations for Democratic candidates in 2018. That was double the amount of 2016, even though 2016, of course, was a presidential year when typically there's higher interest. So if congressional candidates can raise grassroots money, then certainly presidential candidates who are getting CNN town halls and debate stage time and Face the Nation interviews, et cetera, certainly they can manage it. If you want to see why it matters where candidates get their money, look no further than Joe Biden. He recently went out of his way to reassure a room full of rich people that nothing would fundamentally change if he is elected president. That was no doubt music to their ears, of course. Pete Buttigieg has become an elite fundraising darling with his sparkling Harvard and McKinsey and Norwegian language speaking resume. He's embraced the traditional fundraising approach on his way to a $25 million cash haul. And that's really another problem with the big money approach. It can prop up a candidate long past when the public has really signaled that they're just not that into them. While rich people throw millions at him, Mayor Pete slid in the most recent ABC WAPO poll to just 4% of the vote. And then there's Kamala Harris. According to a Politico analysis, she has been the queen of the bundlers, scooping up more Clinton and Obama bundlers than any other candidate far and away. And Kamala, to me, is the perfect example of a candidate who probably could raise the grassroots money that she needs and not have to sell her soul to Wall Street and Silicon Valley to do it. It seems to me that she lacks confidence in this approach because she lacks certainty that she actually wants to be that candidate with grassroots appeal. You could see, for example, her embracing Sanders-style Medicare for all and then walking it back, not once, but twice. So candidates can say all kinds of stuff to you when they're trying to win your vote. They can promise you that they've changed, that they get it, they can sparkle in ready for Instagram debate moments, but pay attention to what they actually do. Do they run their campaigns in a way that's consistent with the values they claim to support, in a way that's consistent with the values that you support? In my view, it is time for the party of the people to put their money with their mouth where their mouth is, and there are no more excuses. And we're also learning, Saagar, this morning more about the Elizabeth Warren campaign and the unorthodox approach that they're taking. They basically have no outside consultants, no outside pollster. They're doing all their content in-house, which is basically unheard of. So they clearly are taking a different approach to this thing, and I completely applaud them for doing it.
I think it's really working, and I was actually talking about this yesterday. I think one of the things that might explain the $19.1 million that she was able to raise is people often try to group her in with Bernie Sanders, but it's important to remember that their bases are completely different.
Very different.
Within the Democratic Party. You have an upper middle class, more white liberal who is very taken with Warren, whereas Bernie Sanders' appeal, like you were talking about, is the Walmart worker, low wage, white working class, or even just working class voter.
Working class,
multiracial working class appeal. And so the fact that he's able to raise that amount of money from a much poorer base also shows to me why in that latest ABC Washington Post poll that he's at 23% and Elizabeth Warren's at 11%. It's that these candidates like Warren or Buttigieg can only be polling at 4% of the vote, but if all 4% of those people work on Wall Street or in Silicon Valley, not too shabby.
Right. So you're going to have the money to compete.
That's why we should read into the money, but we should also read into where the money comes from. And I think that's just as important.
Yeah, and Sanders, I think if you look at the average donation amount, that's an important barometer. I think Sanders' average donation is like $18.
Right.
So, I mean, pretty incredible. But to me, where it comes from is just as important as how much it is.
Absolutely.
Next up on Rising, Despite all the debate over who will face off against President Trump in 2020, one political scientist predicts that Democrats are going to come out on top.
She tells us what her research shows and her thoughts on the primary so far when Rising continues.